Good afternoon. Welcome to the Midday Mull for Thursday, the 23rd of March. Continuing to follow Robert Murray McShane's reading scheme, one of the chapters we read today is Exodus chapter 34. In it, Moses has dealt with the golden calf, and following that incident, he carves out some more stone tablets and takes them back up the mountain to meet with God and to be re-given the law for the people. And as he goes up, he meets God, and God's glory passes in front of him, and we're told God speaks his name to Moses. And as he passes, he proclaims, the Lord, the compassionate and gracious God, slow to anger, abounding in love and faithfulness, maintaining love to thousands, and forgiving wickedness, rebellion, and sin. Yet he does not leave the guilty unpunished. He punishes the children and their children for the sin of the fathers to the third and fourth generation. And as I read that, you have this sort of juxtaposition of the judgment on sin. The guilty are going to be punished, and it's going to go through generations. And we see that with sin. Somebody that does something wrong ends up affecting the children, and the children pass it on to their children very often. Now, I've heard of people who had an alcohol problem and had to sell the farm, and that meant that their children didn't inherit the farm, and so the effects of sin are passed on. And so we have this not letting the guilty go unpunished. But at the same time, you've got the gracious, compassionate God abounding in love, forgiving wickedness, rebellion, and sin. And you say, how do these two opposites apply to the same God? Surely you're either forgiving or you hold the guilty responsible. And in actual fact, unless God holds the guilty accountable, and unless there is a consequence to sin, then forgiveness is senseless. If there's no sin and no guilt and no punishment, then forgiveness is completely unnecessary. God doesn't have to be loving then, he just has to be. He doesn't have to be compassionate, because there's nothing to be compassionate about. There's no consequences. Do what you like and all will go well, or nothing bad will happen. Whereas the fact that there is sin, and that sin does cut you off from God, and that there is judgment on sin, and that the guilty will not go unpunished, then for God to say he is forgiving, that he is compassionate, that he is gracious, that he forgives wickedness, rebellion, and sin, that then becomes important, because you don't have to be guilty. You can be forgiven. You don't have to be punished. There is an alternative way available to you. And at that point, that love and graciousness and compassion comes out into clear focus. And so we have a God who is completely just and holy and good and cannot tolerate evil. But he's also a loving God who can forgive if we ask him, who's opened a way through Christ. That is our God. He is both the judge as well as the Savior. Hold on to that and know that you are blessed.